Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I believe this is episode number 3 of the Internetic Method podcast. My name is Nicola, and I'm your host. I'm an accent reduction coach with 10 years of experience. I've worked with over 6,500 students so far, and today I wanted to talk about how long does it take to lose one's accent. In the previous episode, we talked a bit about what accent reduction really is and how it works and why it works in such a way. But today, I wanted to address a couple of questions because people want to know how long does it take to lose an accent. So, the timeline really depends on several different factors, but what most people don't realize is how accents are formed. So, when you think about every single person and how every single person has acquired their first language, it typically works like this. So a child is born and they, of course, know 0 words. They look to their surroundings, they look to their caretakers, and they listen to their speech, and they acquire their first language. So they listen and they connect. They learn about the language simultaneously as they learned about the world around them. And parents usually, do not sit down the kids in front of them with a grammar book and say, okay, today we're going to learn about this and this. No, they end up talking to the child, and very early on, it's repetitive stuff. It's very rudimentary, elementary things such as, are you hungry, or you're very cute, or who's a good boy, or who's daddy's little princess, and so on. So kids pick up on a lot of things. It's not just vocab and grammar. They end up picking up on the rhythm, connection, intonation, tonality, even body language. So my favorite thing to see is an Instagram reel or a YouTube video about a tiny Italian toddler imitating their parents, once they get into an argument, and you see the little hand gesture, and that is the most adorable thing ever. So bottom line is, when we're kids, we pick up on a lot of things. And because we pick up on a lot of things, most kids do not start learning the second language up until age of, let's say, 7, 8, 9, sometimes even. So that means that most kids who are non-native English speakers, they will have a couple of years where they only speak their first language and nothing else, right? Now, what ends up happening when you go ahead and speak one language for extended periods of time, you end up developing muscle memory for it. And so muscle memory is something that a lot of people, not really think about. They do think about it in terms of walking, swimming, dancing and stuff. But there is also muscle memory that gets created for how we move our facial muscles and our jaw and our lips and our tongue to actually produce sounds and to produce speech. So when we're kids, we end up speaking our first language for many years, to the point where we develop our own muscle memory for how we should be moving our lower jaw, our lips, and our mouth. Once that happens, once we actually go ahead and do that, it's something that is pretty automated. We don't really spend a whole lot of time thinking about, I need to do it like this, or I need to do it like that. It's just automated. We know this to be true because, think about it this way. When you wake up early in the morning, and let's say you're a Spanish native speaker, right, from Colombia, for example, do you wake up and tell yourself, today I'm going to sound like a Spanish speaker? I'll bet you anything you don't do that. But that would be funny, but you do not do that. So you end up speaking, and then what comes out, and then you realize, it's just how I sound. And the reason why you sound like that is because, you, when you were a child, you, just like any other non native English speaker, you learn your first language. And then when you started learning your second language, your teachers, I will bet you anything, focused only on vocabulary and grammar. They typically do not focus on rhythm, connection, intonation, tonality. This is what you do with your tongue. This is what you do with your lips, and so on and so forth. So when you think about it, you do learn the vocab and grammar of English, but you end up copy pasting what you already know from your first language. So this is why when we talk about accents, it is actually fairly accurate to assume that German native speakers, for example, when you take a large enough sample size, let's say 1,000 German speakers, they typically sound very much alike. There's a lot of similarity, and the reason for that is they all have one thing in common, and this is their first language. So German speakers will sound German, and this is because they have not been taught about all these things that they already picked up on their first language. And the same goes for Indian native speakers and Spanish native speakers and Italian native speakers. So basically, you develop this muscle memory, and then by the time you start learning your second language, nobody really explains to you, hey, this is what you should be doing, and this is what part of the mouth you should be touching with your tongue, and this is how you put your lips, and this is how and what you do with your jaw. There just is lack of information. And so to really start answering the question of how long it takes, for anybody to lose their accent, the true answer is it depends. It is different for everyone, from person to person. But I will say that most people start to notice their first significant improvements within 3 to 4 weeks of consistent practice. By 8 to 12 weeks, they typically report that other people started making comments on their clear speech. But more substantial transformation usually takes, a little bit more than that. So about 6, plus months to get ongoing attention. Now, you really can get started in a number of ways. You can get started with recording your own voice. There's a number of voice recording apps nowadays, but if you have an iPhone, which a lot of people do nowadays, there is a voice note or voice memo app, whatever the name is, and the same can be found on any other Android device. You can just record yourself and track your progress and boost your confidence. So factors that influence the personal timeline include your native language. So some create more pronunciation challenges with English. How many sounds that you need to modify. So it's not going to be the same if somebody needs to work on 4 sounds as opposed to 12 sounds. I think this is pretty logical. And then the practice consistency. So daily practice will accelerate progress dramatically, as opposed to you doing a couple of minutes here and there, every third or fourth day. It just is not the same. And finally, the quality of your guidance, I think, is really, really what moves the needle. So personalized feedback prevents practicing incorrectly. And this is why I'm really, really not a big proponent of AI-powered apps, of accent reduction apps. I know that, in today's day and age, everybody is a big proponent of AI, and AI has its own place in today's world for sure. It can help us with a number of things. However, I am still to come across an app that is good enough and that can recognize so many tiny nuances when it comes to particular accents. So really, your best bet, I think, although I have to admit I am a little bit biased when it comes to this, but I really think that personalized feedback trumps everything else. A lot of things that I said were okay, and they stand. However, something that I forgot to mention was the appropriate speaking speed. So when working with certain nationalities, with certain native speakers of different languages, let's say Spanish native speakers, I found that it is almost a second nature to them to speak a little bit faster. And I some language speakers are faster than others. This is normal. We have people who talk slower. We have people who talk faster. But in my experience, Spanish native speakers typically are a little bit on the faster side. And so a lot of times, even if you decide not to go with an accent production coach, just lowering your speaking speed is for sure bound to, to clear your speech up, especially when you're excited or eager to share some ideas. If you just start speaking too quickly, for sure that can hinder pronunciation and understanding. And you want to really go ahead and take your time to enunciate effectively. And finally, the most important thing I think to understand is the timeline. Is the consistency really? So the consistency matters more than intensity. It's very much like going to the gym. You are far, far better off going to the gym um, every day for 30 minutes in a very, very low intensity type setting for 5 years than you are, if you were to go to the gym once a week and then spend 5 hours there and get your muscles to burn and to be really, really sore and to possibly even injure yourself. So really, consistency trumps intensity. Take it easy. 15 minutes of daily practice is far more effective than occasional longer sessions when it comes to developing new speech habits. And if you don't believe me, just think about how you picked up on your first language. You didn't pick it up overnight, right? Even your first language, you did not pick it up overnight. When you were a baby, you ended up learning it for years. 2 years of daily exposure, 2 years of trial and error, 2 years of failure until you started talking like a toddler. And even that is not the best representation of what a good speaker is. So really, this is what I wanted to share on how long it takes to lose one's accent. To recap, it depends on a number of factors, such as your first language, how many sounds you need to modify. 4 is not the same as 12. 3 is not the same as 7. Your practice consistency and the quality of your guidance. But most speakers will see first improvements within the first 4 weeks. Other people will start to notice after 12 weeks, and sustained clarity starts to appear around month 6 and a little bit later. So once again, thank you for your time. In the next one, we're going to start talking about some tips and tricks that you can start using today to start neutralizing your accent and achieve that confident and clear speech that you want. Once again, thank you for your time and attention. My name is Nicola. I'm an accent coach at intonetic.com. If you are interested in having your accent professionally assessed, head over to intonetic.com/contact and feel free to book a free accent assessment session where I will give you a personalized roadmap on what sounds it is that you need to fix. Once again, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Talk soon.